Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? A lot going on, obviously, out at Saints camp. And it's always our pleasure when we get a few minutes of former Saints linebacker Scott Shanle, who's good enough to join us now on the show. Scott, thanks as always for the time, man. How are you?
I'm doing good.
Probably better than Sean Payton's doing right now, as his roster keeps getting decimated. Listen, I know you're following the Saints in the offseason from afar, but, man, in your playing career, did you ever go through an offseason like this where it seems every day you wake up and, boom, there's another starter gone?
No. It is unbelievable that every day you wake up and it's like there's another piece of bad news coming out of training camp. And, expectations from the national media are already really low for this team because it's post-life Drew Brees, and that was supposed to be the biggest question mark you have. And it still is the biggest question mark, but now you have tons of these other questions. 10, 11 new starters on the team because of the cap. They had to get rid of some good players. Patrick Robinson retires, and that's the nature of the NFL. I mean, you would like to hope that your biggest problem was replacing a Hall of Fame quarterback, but now you have all these other things mounting up, and you have distractions with the whole Michael Thomas issue. But at the end of the day, if there's anybody that I would want leading all this drama, it's Sean Payton, because I feel like he relishes these opportunities to prove people wrong. Nobody has any expectations out of this team, and I think that keeps him awake at night, innovating and trying to figure out a way to help this team win any way he can.
So that's a really interesting thought, and I don't doubt that at all. But there's this mantra like the next man up thing. Is that legitimate? Or Scott, at some point, is your roster just gutted to the point where you can't just take the next guy, plug him in, and expect to perform at that level?
Listen, I think the past few years, we've been spoiled with the amount of depth this Saints team has had. And when you say next man up, when you have depth and you have a team that is really stacked top to bottom, you've drafted well, next man up works. Now, next man up works when you're not talking multiple positions because there's a reason all those guys aren't starting. It's easy to have a backup come in and step up and fill his void and fill a role for something. But when you ask a bunch of guys to do that, that's difficult.
Of all the personnel issues that we've seen, which do you think is the most concerning?
Well, I always go back to under Sean Payton, going all the way back to 2006. When our secondary has been legit and when our secondary has not been an issue, that team has been, we've had good teams. We've had playoff caliber teams. And, I don't know enough because I haven't seen training camp and seen the practices, but I just know going into training camp, besides losing Drew, the number one concern for me was who's going to start opposite Marshawn Lattimore, because let's face it, if you're the guy starting opposite Marshawn, you're going to get tons of targets. You're either going to have people writing up bad things about you every week, or you're going to make yourself a lot of money because you're going to get plenty of opportunities to make plays. And so for me, the number one position I'm worried about, like I said, outside of quarterback and the performance, is cornerback.
Are they done there, or do you think they make a move if it's a trade to acquire a starting caliber cornerback?
Yeah, I definitely think they'll give it a couple weeks into training camp, and then if they don't feel like they have a guy who can hold up over there, like I said, a guy who can hold up getting targeted multiple times a game, they're going to go out and make a move, and they're probably going to have to trade some draft capital away, maybe more than they would want to. But I still feel like, you have Cam Jordan. Hopefully Davenport steps up. You have talented players on this roster, a lot of guys in their prime. There's no reason to say, let's fold it in and build for a couple years down the road. You have really talented players, and you're still one of those teams who are just trying to plug a couple of holes to get to the playoffs.
Scott Shanle is our guest, former Saint linebacker, does great work with CST as well. No mention yet of Michael Thomas. I would love to know, as a former player, your take on all of the drama that has unfolded around that whole situation.
Yeah, I don't have any inside information. I'm sitting there learning things on the run, kind of like the fans. But last year when he got injured, and I was on Michael's side in terms of thinking when he comes back from this injury and he gets past the whole being suspended by the Saints for getting in the fight with Chauncey, I thought that was all going to be put behind him. Now, I think I'm out. I got a foot out of the door on the Michael Thomas thing. I think he's a heck of a player. I'm disappointed because I thought he was a competitor who was rewarded by the Saints with a big deal, and I thought he would earn all that money. But when you're not returning calls from the general manager and the head coach and trainers, that's a problem. That's a huge problem for me. And I think if you talk to any former player, when you do things like that and then show up and say, now I need surgery and I can't play football for you guys, it's just a matter of time before you're out of town.
Certainly that's been Sean Payton's MO. He's not protected star caliber players. Is that relationship able to be repaired?
Yeah, I think any relationship is able to be repaired because if I'm the Saints, I go to Michael and say, listen, you performed for us and we rewarded you. We gave you the payday you wanted because you were a cornerstone of our franchise. Now, whatever else is bothering you, whether you can't get over the fact that we suspended you for a game when the whole Chauncey thing started, and I really think that's where everything started to go sideways, that should not be something that fractures a relationship to the point of we have to get rid of one of the top receivers in the NFL. And I think you just have to sit down and talk about if that's what got you all sideways, we need to find a way to get past it because guys have done way worse than that and got shipped out of town. And he's a guy who's, like I said, he's still in his prime. He's a young receiver, big target. And especially when you're breaking in quarterback, you need players like Michael Thomas in the building to perform on Sundays.
Scott, I have one more about Michael Thomas that I wanted to ask. And I'm going to ask you this because I was asked this question, and I just had to speculate. You could have a much better perspective on it, which is so it was phrased to me like, if Drew Brees were still on the team, do you think the Michael Thomas situation would have still happened the same way it did? Or is that something where Drew might have intervened and as a team leader and avoided this situation? So I'll ask you that question. What's your reaction when you hear that speculative, obviously?
Yeah, I think so. My understanding, like I said, I don't have a whole lot of information besides what fans are getting through the media. But Drew was kind of the Michael Thomas whisperer. Drew brought out that competitive edge in Michael. Michael watched Drew as a young player, wanted to be great, would constantly be there in Drew's ear. What do I have to do to be the best receiver in the league? There was a relationship there that if anybody could get Michael back on the right page, maybe it's not Mickey or Sean, maybe it's Drew Brees getting back involved and getting Michael back on board, because I know Michael has a lot of respect for Drew, and he should. I mean, he was a pro's pro who taught him how to become one of the great receivers in the league. And so if there's anybody who could get him back, I think it'd be Drew Brees.
Scott Shanle is our guest. Speaking of Drew Brees, his replacement is obviously a giant talking point. I can't believe we're 8 minutes into this chat and we haven't talked quarterback yet, but it's kind of the nature of everything else that's gone on around the Saints here in the last couple of weeks. But the word out of camp is that neither guy has really separated. So how do you make the decision?
To me, I don't think it's going to be a cut and dry number one. You know, when you have a guy in Jameis who was the number one pick, he's thrown for 5,000 yards in the NFL. Now, he's turned the ball over. Everybody knows he can't turn the ball over, or it doesn't matter how talented he is. He will not play in Sean's offense. I really think you're going to see Jameis in the prototypical drop-back passing game, and you may see Taysom more outside of the role he's been in. But I really think it's going to be Jameis is going to be the starting quarterback with Taysom mixed in more heavily than you saw him mixed in with Drew. And that would be my guess. And I don't know for sure. They have a lot of football ahead of them, preseason games to play. And this thing may not get settled until after week 2, 3, or 4. But that would be my prediction.
He is Scott Shanle, former Saints linebacker, does great work with CST. He's on Twitter at Scott Shanle. Y'all give him a follow. And always generous with his time to join us when we can get him. Scott, we appreciate it as always, man. We'll bother you again during the season.
Yeah, sounds good.
Thanks.
Anytime.
Thanks, man. We appreciate it. Good stuff from Scott Shanle. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.